Hey, want to know something to make you feel old? Yeah, I thought so. It was almost a bit more than a decade ago that alternative pop singer Melanie Martinez appeared as if she was on her way toward becoming one of those indie artists turned A-list pop idols in the music industry. Her artistry and branding was quite eccentric and quite unlike anything other pop artists playing on top 40 radio stations, alongside her hit track Pity Party was doing at the time. With the release of her 2015 debut album Crybaby, her career immediately took off, filling up stadium seats to capacity at her concerts. Her merch was selling out like hotcakes, and music lovers seemed to have breathed a collective sigh of relief to finally have a true creative, with an offbeat aesthetic, have their moment in the spotlight, and not some cookie cutter standard hit maker who sings everything Max Martin writes for them for once. A void Lady Gaga left empty as her career expanded, and she became less dependent on boundary pushing and shock value. And that's not a diss toward Lady Gaga, by the way. She is forever an icon and worthy of great respect and admiration.
Talented, brilliant, incredible, amazing, show-stopping, spectacular.
But when you look at the early days of Lady Gaga's career and the early days of Melanie Martinez's, it appears as if Melanie Martinez's own career was heading down the same trajectory that Lady Gaga's would eventually blossom into. Now, before you start with me about, what about the sexual allegations? That's not Lady Gaga! I'm getting there. Patience is a virtue. Anyone who was there during the Me Too movement in 2017 knows that Melanie Martinez's career took quite a dramatic turn, and for the worse. At least that's what most people assume. And today's video is a deep dive trying to answer the question you've clicked on this video to have answered. What happened to Melanie Martinez? We'll cover everything from the Timothy Heller sexual assault allegations, her disappearance from the limelight, her complete brand reboot, and what she's up to these days. So if you're bored and you have time to kill, come dive off the complete deep end with me as we explore the rise, fall, and reinvention of Melanie Martinez. Now, Melanie Martinez's career beginnings stem from a very risky place for any artist who's trying to make a name for themselves in the music industry and maintain longevity: a singing competition show. In 2012, Melanie auditioned for and was accepted into the lineup of competing vocalists on NBC's The Voice, much to the begrudgedness of then Judge Christina Aguilera, who was seemingly triggered by Melanie's song choice, Toxic by Britney Spears, Christina's longtime frenemy. Anyway, that's a video for another day. Now, Melanie, being the non-linear music artist that she is, she chose to put a different spin on the track that fit her individual vibe, tone, and vocal style. Breathy, whispery, hyper-feminine sounding vocals, with the accompaniment of an acoustic guitar that had Adam Levine putting on his best predatory creep face. But that sure didn't stop her from choosing him as a coach. She continued to bring her specific music style to many other cover songs she performed throughout her time on the show, with tracks like Lights by Ellie Goulding, Bulletproof by LaRue, Hit the Road Jack by Ray Charles, and Too Close by Alex Clare, and was eliminated after the top 6 round. And as you can see, her signature aesthetic of hair bows and split hair color did not start with the Crybaby era, but her rise to popularity and the main themes of the Crybaby album really amplified it and evolved it into something campy and made for a very niche audience of music lovers. Like emo dressed in pink, if you will, where at first glance, without ever hearing any of her songs, you'd think they'd be uplifting and positive, with all the pastel colors and baby nursery scenery, but the tracks and their lyrics are filled with themes of existential dread, body dysmorphia, crippling depression, and social isolation, amongst the sounds of synthesized music box tunes and funky trap beats. Now, unless you were a big Melanie Martinez fan that was also chronically online, you probably didn't know that Crybaby was more than just the name of her first full album. It was an alter ego Melanie crafted for herself that can be traced back to her early Tumblr days. And as you can see on her profile page, her name is literally Crybaby, an exaggerated portrayal of Melanie Martinez as a child that plays along with the ridicule she received from other kids that bullied and made fun of her for her highly emotional temperament that earned her demeaning names like Crybaby. The creation and birth of the Crybaby character served as Melanie's opportunity to take back the power that in the past she gave the bullies and mean kids, who saw her sensitivity creativity as a weakness, and preemptively made herself the butt of any future joke before anyone else could. At the height of her career, she really struck a nerve with a specific crowd of young people who felt like outsiders and/or were highly sensitive creatives. The Crybaby album and the unconventional style and branding of Melanie Martinez really made many of her fans feel like there was a safe place to land in a world that is highly misunderstanding and exceedingly harsh toward those who identify as strong feelers, are emotionally wide open, and creatives who use their artistic talents as their main outlet to cope with the unfairness and hopelessness about a society or culture that does not support or respect their personhood. She embarked on the Crybaby tour that predominantly played shows in North America, with some stops in Europe and the Australia-New Zealand region. And she sold merch collectibles that go beyond the standard t-shirts and enamel pins that were very on brand for the Crybaby album and character. Perfume packaged in baby bottles, necklaces with a pendant of alphabet blocks that spelled out Crybaby, and handheld mirrors with a creepy humanoid teddy bearish doll face on the back. Very if you know merch. Aesthetic pieces that someone who had never heard of Melanie Martinez would be like, what the fuck is that? Are we sure Labubu's weren't her brainchild? Not making up any conspiracy theories or anything, I'm just saying. They look like something that would be sold in the Crybaby merch lineup. Anyway, we're back on track, at least for now. As always, no promises of no sideline conversations, but I will try my hardest. Now here's what probably a good portion of you watching right now are already aware of, or it's the main reason you click to watch. And that is the sexual assault allegations brought onto Melanie Martinez by Timothy Heller. I'm just going to be reporting what's already been made public knowledge. I'm not here to speculate whether the accusations are true or not, because the allegations themselves are not the focal point of this video. You're entitled to your own opinion about whether or not you think Melanie Martinez is guilty or innocent. I'm just telling you.
I'm not the one.
Not the time, place, or right video to argue about it in my comment section. That's what Reddit is for. Anyway, with that firm but diplomatic warning out of the way, let's get into the downfall and cancellation of Melanie Martinez. In 2017, Timothy Heller, former friend and fellow musician, accused Melanie of raping her during a sleepover 2 years prior to the date of the Twitter post that revealed the accusations. The post is very long and also really graphic, so I'm gonna leave a link in the description if you want to read it for yourself, to which Melanie responded to the claims with her own Twitter post. And naturally, many fans were very divided on the validity of Timothy's claims. One half of the fan base, the pro-Melanie side, is, and still is, very adamant that Melanie is innocent, and insists that Timothy Heller was just trying to claim her 15 minutes of fame by making false accusations out of jealousy at not getting as far in her own career as Melanie had gotten, and that there are timeline inconsistencies with Timothy's version of events, the alleged lack of Timothy never telling Melanie no, and of course the lack of physical evidence that supports Timothy's allegations, like video and audio recordings and such, giving them the confidence to give Melanie the benefit of the doubt. Then the other half of Melanie's fanbase completely pieced out on their support for her and her music straight away, took to Timothy's side and applied the philosophy of believe all victims to the situation, and the fact that Timothy Heller was a lesser known artist, the power imbalance between her and Melanie was very apparent. Melanie was the one with the upper hand. She had millions of supporters, stronger connections to keep her dark past or bad behavior from becoming public knowledge, and didn't believe there was reason to question Timothy's claims when it could jeopardize her own music career and public reputation. But the allegations now permanently follow Melanie Martinez everywhere she goes, and remains attached to her name anytime someone says it. That's what happens to any and every celebrity who gets publicly accused of something as heinous and terrible as sexual assault, and it prompted her to lay low for a very hot hot minute until the next chapter of the Crybaby saga was ready to be told, marking the return of Melanie Martinez with the K-12 era in 2019, where apparently we get a glimpse into Crybaby's social life and how she navigates outside world circumstances, as opposed to the internal experienced and privatized thoughts that was the main focus of the 2015 Crybaby album. And K-12 was adapted into a full-length feature, hour-and-a-half-long musical film, where the plotline revolves around Crybaby attending boarding school in a fantastical land that looks confused as to whether or not it wants to be Whoville or the Land of Oz, and how she and her friends decide to hatch up a genius plan to free themselves and the rest of the student body from this hellhole that operates more like a state penitentiary for the Ozzy and Who youth than a place of learning and preparing for life in the real world. Real world schools in real life don't really do that either, so art might as well be imitating life here. And this wasn't like just some small production straight to streaming release. It actually had an in-cinema premiere that took place in select movie theaters around the world, in addition to a release on YouTube Premium for members only on the very same day, with the actual K-12 music album and DVD of the musical film, both coming out the very next day. And it received generally positive reviews amongst both fans and critics, but it didn't quite make the mainstream headlines or grab the attention of the general public. But post-2019 is where there seemed to be a shift in what kind of artists the younger generations, the predominant age group that determines what is trendy in pop culture or not, consumed, listened to, and became fans of, without generalizing and stereotyping an entire generation. But generally, many that are in the Gen Z age bracket have an aversion to anything that is hyper sensationalized and immediately reach for the word cringe to describe their discomfort with an art form, style, or any other self-expression they think is over the top or unnecessary. And obviously, with the campiness and offbeat nature of Melanie Martinez's artistry and creative choices, it's easy to see how the younger generation wouldn't exactly vibe with that. Or all they know about her are the allegations, and they don't bother to get curious about her or listen to her music. And the fact that her camp points reached an all-time high in 2023 with her album Portals almost certainly didn't do her any favors for reaching any young potential listeners with a cringe allergy. Now, this album served as the funeral for the Crybaby alter ego and the birth of a new character / alter ego of what looks to be a bipedal Pokemon cloning experiment gone wrong with the voice of a chipmunk.
So how did you come up with this particular character? Because obviously it's incredibly unique in your vision.
I was just drawing it for a long time, and one day I was like, you know what, it might be really cool to just fully commit to this. And you know, part of me also selfishly was like, I don't want to be perceived. I kind of like just being able to be in this character, and it helps on stage. You know, when you have any kind of stage fright or anxiety, you can kind of just go into this mode and kind of be this other creature, and it's fun. It's really fun for me. I enjoy it.
Now, this bipedal failed Pokemon clone's name has never been named, so most fans just call it the nymph or the creature. Now, in every single piece of media there is with this nymph creature, Melanie Martinez's speaking voice is altered to that chipmunk pitch. That wasn't an inside joke with anything with that specific interviewer or podcast show.
So, for a long time, I was reading a lot of like past life regression therapy books, and all of them were about the in-between life between death and being alive on Earth. It's all about the afterlife essentially, and I wanted to show Crybaby, this character that I had been living under for a long time. I wanted to show her evolution and kind of, I guess, the idea of immortality and how she can be kind of the same spirit, just in a new vessel.
Melanie Martinez really committed to the bit with this character she crafted to represent the vibe and overall vision of Portals. And the only time anyone heard her real voice is in the tracks on Portals and during the live performances on stage, on the trilogy tour that was dedicated to promoting her entire discography and not just the Portals album. And her explanation for this new alter ego that had her covered from head to toe and having her speaking voice completely tweaked was an intentional attempt to allow herself to have a controlled sense of privacy as a public figure and to help her overcome stage fright that she so often gets audience while performing live. Now, when a certain celebrity gets into hot water with the public, people love to resort to the falling off explanation. But I think with Melanie Martinez, there's so much more to it than just the sexual assault allegations. Yes, I do think the allegations tarnished her reputation permanently and hurt her chances of getting any bigger and possibly destroyed some opportunities that would have opened up the doors for her to become more mainstream. But also, Melanie Martinez seems to be one of those artists that prioritizes the artistic aspects of the industry over the business ones. What I mean is, in order to attain the highest level of fame in any sort of sector of entertainment as an artist, you have to give up a good chunk of your individuality and true artistic expression. And in the context of singers and musicians, once they're assigned to a label, they're basically a slave to whoever is giving them their share of the royalties. They have to make whatever kind of music the people at the label asks them to make, or record the number of albums the contract they signed when they were first brought onto the label says they are to. I've rubbed shoulders with people who work in the music industry. I mean, I'm not in the music industry, but I was born and raised in Music City, so I've heard rumblings all my life and witnessed firsthand people that I personally have known try to get into the music industry about what goes on in that shit. I can't claim to know anything as a fact. I'm not MJ, I don't want to be starting something. Anyway, all that was just to say, artists who choose to prioritize the art of their music and not the business portion of what often comes with the restrictive nature of some record labels, will either try to go independent by creating their own label, just like this channel's beloved JoJo did with her label Clover Records, or they switch labels after the contract with their current label is up, or they stay at their current label and ask for a new creative team or personal management that is more aligned with their artistic vision. I'm going to assume the latter is the case for Melanie Martinez, being able to stick to her artistic guns in her music production and distribution, seeing how she's been with Atlantic Records for the entirety of her career. And Atlantic Records is one of the top major record labels in the world. Whatever the case is, I think the fact that Melanie Martinez has always remained true to her own sound and vibe, and hasn't turned into a pop track vending machine that just follows the latest music trends, has made her less top 40 radio friendly, and not as discoverable as someone who would probably be doing the opposite of her. Naturally, if her newer music isn't picked up by airwaves or new music discovery playlists on Spotify, or however people are discovering new music these days, if not traditional radio, her tuned out or potential new listeners reach declines, affecting her overall discoverability. So naturally, with her making headlines again recently, speaking out to offer her condolences about Oliver Tree's death, people are curious as to what she's up to these days. Well, most recently this past March 2026, she's released another studio album titled Hades, with the alter ego Circle, a young cult escapee taking center stage as the album's main central character, and storytelling vessel for exploring themes such as the threat of AI replacing humans, the consequences of modern day society caused by the patriarchy, and everything else that's wrong with the world in 2026. And its visual presentation is a far cry from her previous fairy tale and light whimsy that was seen in her previous albums. This one is more visibly dark and more feminine rage-coded, and she already has plans so soon to release another album called Elysium that is acting as a sister album to Hades, kind of like how Taylor Swift did with Folklore and Evermore, releasing two different full-length albums within the same year. Nothing much is really known about this next album of Melanie Martinez's other than the name. So this prompts us to ask again the question asked in the beginning: what happened to Melanie Martinez? Personally, I just think she chose to prioritize the artistry of her career over professional advancements that could have made her more mainstream. And based on watching interviews of her and the research I did for this video, she doesn't really seem to like the limelight, so I really don't think she's complaining about where she is now. I think she just chose to be true to her craft and not become a sellout to please a bunch of music industry moguls. Now, I'm not saying every single artist who follows trends and steers in other artistic directions for the sake of better business is automatically a bad artist, but I do think that it's very apparent when you're following the journey of a particular artist from their early days and you witness their evolution over time. You can easily see who's doing it to achieve more fame and money versus the ones who are truly just experimenting without abandoning their core artistic identity. And combined with the 2017 accusations of her former friend really put a dent in her public image and made people want to tune out from her. Because now you can't come across Melanie Martinez without being made aware of the allegations. So I think the combination of these two factors is probably why we don't hear much about her anymore, or accidentally stumble upon snippets of her new music easily. But as always, that's just my 2 cents about the career evolution of Melanie Martinez and the state of her relevancy. But that's going to be it for today's video. Thank you for watching. Be sure to let me know you approve by giving this video a big ol' thumbs up. And if you vibed with the commentary, be sure to subscribe and you'll become a part of this channel's emotional support coven. Just find wherever it says subscribe underneath this video, click it with your finger or mouse, and it'll make a sound like this. Bing! Well, if you have your volume on, that is. Then it will go bing! So that way you have a better chance of getting to claim first with each and every new bi-weekly upload. But you'll get the best chance if you turn notifications on. Stay cool, stay fresh, and I'll see you next time.